Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 121 based on novel. So let's start. With the sound of shouting and clapping in the field, the strong fighters in the box also showed their real capital one after another. All kinds of natural materials and earth treasures spit out from the mouths of the strong fighters like counting. This scene made the people on the lower stand stunned. In a short moment, the names of medicinal materials and some precious materials spit out from the mouths of more than 10 strong fighting emperors turned out to be nearly 100 kinds. However, this is far from enough for them to really win this Huaji pill. Listening to some of the natural materials and earth treasures that he didn't even know, Xiao Yan couldn't help but marvel for a while. After looking at the thousands of leaves in his hand, Xiao Yan found that although his thousands of leaves are also cherished, compared with the materials in the hands of the strong fighting emperor, there is a feeling of great witches seeing little witches. In terms of quality, it can only be regarded as the middle and upper reaches at most. Compared with the real good things, it still has a long distance. Although these guys look formal on the surface, the real treasure in their hands is far beyond my reach. With this in mind, Xiao Yang could not help but feel awe-inspiring. The details of fighting the emperor and the strong are indeed not easily comparable to those of the half-emperor. Think about it. Just 2 days ago, when he was still surprised by the 1,000 leaves, Xiao Yang never thought that he would see such a scene 2 days later. At this moment, Xiao Yang seemed to know what it was called that there were people outside people and there were days outside the world. Hey, everyone, I have to say that the treasures in your hands are indeed very precious in heaven and earth, but you should also understand that the value of a fourth-order pill is not an ordinary thing that can be easily measured. After a pause, Fang Qian's eyes slowly swept over the dozen strong fighters in the sky. On an old face, his look did not change at all because of the so-called baby in the mouth of those strong fighters. You really cherish the things you have taken out. If these things are on the market, they can indeed be called the existence of a price without a market. However, if you expect to auction the fourth-order pill with this kind of thing, it will be too mean. Fang Qian's words fell, and the faces of the strong fighting emperors in the sky also changed slightly, and their faces couldn't help showing a touch of embarrassment. In order to exchange this 1/3 possibility at the lowest cost, the presence of a lot of fighting powers was quite prudent at the time of their respective bids. Of course, Fang Qian's words also had some exaggerated meanings, but such words fell, but many of them could not help but face their old faces. But suddenly came out a soft voice full of charming words. Giggle, at least it's also a group of fighting emperors. It's so stingy to offer a price. Just take this junk out and hope to exchange it for Huaji pill. Why, in your eyes, the fourth-order pill is so worthless. At the moment when the voice of Nuo's words came out, all the men present immediately felt a sense of crispness in their bodies, as if even the bones melted under the sound. At the same time, even the pretty faces of those women could not help smearing a crimson color. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang in the box couldn't help condensing in his heart, but he didn't expect that the voice could make women show this appearance. He immediately looked aside. Immediately, Xiao Yang's pupils couldn't help shrinking slightly, and he couldn't help feeling a burst of horror at Jin Yao's method. He did not expect that even Murong Qianxian, who was beside him at the moment, could not help but show a light crimson color on his beautiful face. Although because of the relationship of the box, he could resist most of the strange enchanting voices for the girl, he still affected the little girl after all. In the sky, everyone who heard Jin Yao's words could not help but change slightly. Obviously, they could not afford to underestimate this beautiful woman in red dress. Jin Yao, you said we took rags. What can you take out? As a fighting emperor, your collection is not rich. Jin Yao's disdainful words caused the anger of a yellow-robed old man in the field. Suddenly, with the words falling in the old man's mouth, a heavy cold hum came out from his nose. Immediately, an invisible momentum surged out of the old man's body, making the void around him tremble. Giggle, Shan Lei, don't you know what I do? Businessman, the worst thing is to collect from all directions. As the owner of the 1,000 medicine workshop, I dare not say that I will be collected in the world. However, there are some things in my hand, which are many times better than the ivy root in your hand. Jin Yao had a smiling appearance. The smile on her pretty face looked beautiful and charming, which made people fall in love with it. At the same time, it also made the back of all the strong fighting emperors present creepy. At the same time, in the hearts of all the people, she dared not treat him as an ordinary strong fighting emperor anymore. As a strong fighting emperor, the old man's momentum just surged slightly, which made the void around him tremble. Looking at Jin Yarrow, although he could not see anything on the surface, he unconsciously made the people present feel dangerous. From this point of view alone, Jin Yarrow's strength, even among the more than 10 strong fighting emperors, it is definitely a top-notch existence. As Jin Yarrow's words fell, his jade hand also waved gently. Soon, a silver scroll appeared in Jin Yarrow's hand. At the moment when the scroll appeared, the face on the scene suddenly changed. If you can take out the scroll in this case, needless to say, I'm afraid it's at least a volume of skill or fighting skill above the spirit level. Seeing the silver scroll in Jin Yarrow's hand, the muscles on the faces of the fighting emperors couldn't help but twitch violently. Even Xiao Yan, who was in the box at the moment, also appeared in a pair of painted black pupils. Thunder is determined. It's a low-level skill of spirit level and thunder attribute. It's famous for attacking fury. Those who practice it are more aggressive and domineering than others. They are invincible against people. Jin Yarrow's pretty face looked calm, and the words in her mouth also made the old man in yellow robe who spoke just now look iron blue in an instant. Spirit level skill. This is really spirit level skill. On the stand, everyone looked shocked and fell his unbelievable eyes on the silver scroll in Jin Yarrow's jade hand at the moment. It's hard to imagine that Jin Yarrow really took out a volume of spiritual level skills. At this moment, not only the people on the court, but also the powerful people fighting the emperor were full of surprise when they looked at Jin Yarrow. At the same time, they also had a deep color of greed. As the strong fighting emperor, they are not unable to take out the spiritual level skills, but the skills at that level are all the skills they have cultivated, so it is naturally impossible to take them out for trading. At present, Jin Yarrow was able to take out a volume of spiritual level skills in front of them, which really shocked them for the richness of Jin Yarrow's collection. A volume of spiritual level skills, if they are placed in ordinary forces or some families, they can be inherited from generation to generation. Let alone where to trade, it is impossible for ordinary people to take it out at a glance. That kind of things, but they all have to be collected absolutely safely. At present, Jin Yarrow's seemingly light move makes everyone present feel deeply shocked. Especially those who fight the emperor and are strong, they understand that the thunder is definitely in their hands, which will undoubtedly become the top priority of the whole family behind them, and it is absolutely impossible to take it out easily. But now, the leader of the gold workshop is willing to offer a volume of low-level spiritual skill in exchange for this Huaji pill, but who else is willing to bid? On the auction stage, Fang Qian's already bright smile on his old face was like a flower. Obviously, he was also quite satisfied with the thunder decision taken out by Jin Yarrow. A pair of muddy old eyes looked around and found that no one had bid again, but Fang Qian's old face couldn't help feeling sorry. If someone was willing to bid again and could come up with a higher level spirit level intermediate skill, it would be a huge profit for their Qianyun auction house. Although there is only a simple difference between the primary and intermediate skill methods of the spirit level, the gap is incomparable. After a little silence, the cry Fang Qian wanted to hear was delayed in the future. At present, Jin Yarrow has come up with the spirit level skill. Since no one is competing with her, it seems that it can only be so. At the next moment, just when Fang Qian was about to speak, a strong and powerful voice suddenly rang out in the auction market. I have produced a volume of low-level spiritual skills, with a volume of fighting skills that complement the skills. At the same time, outside a silent box from beginning to end, a middle-aged man dressed in brocade robes, a pair of silvery white eyes and full of momentum also slowly appeared in the sight of everyone in the field. As the voice in his mouth fell, the look on the faces of the audience changed in an instant, filled with frightened eyes, and fell on the middle-aged man in an instant. At the same time, in the sky, the strong men fighting against the emperor and Jin Yarrow with a surprised look on his pretty face also set their eyes on the middle-aged man. Immediately, the hearts of the strong men fighting against the emperor could not help but be awed. When all the strong fighters at the scene focused their eyes on the middle-aged man, they suddenly felt an invisible momentum of oppression. That kind of oppression made the fighting spirit in the strong fighters at the scene a little stagnant. The middle period of the two-star fighting emperor. At this moment, in the box where Xiao Yan is located, the look on his face is also dignified. At this moment, the middle-aged man on the court has actually reached the middle stage of the two-star fighting emperor. No one can compare with him except Dong Chuan and Fang Qian. Even Jin Yarrow, whose strength is not weak, is just in the early stage of the two-star fight. Facing this guy, he is still a bit cheap. However, what shocked everyone in the field most at the moment was not the strength of the middle-aged man, but the two black scrolls he held in his hand at the moment. The scroll is simple and unsophisticated. Some strange runes are painted on it, but all this is not the point. The point is that it is a set of skill methods. The so-called one set is that both skill and fighting skill are available. This type of skill is rare. Therefore, whenever it can appear in the market, this type of skill is more precious than the ordinary skill of the same level. The low-level skill of spirit level, the black nether determined skill and the dark attribute skill, have a strong swallowing power during cultivation, and can gather the energy of heaven and earth more quickly. The cultivation speed is better than other skills of the same level. At the same time, this skill also comes with a volume of low-level fighting skill of spirit level, the black nether palm. This fighting skill and the skill complement each other and cooperate with each other. When used, it is the strongest to compete with the middle level of spirit level fighting skills are comparable. The middle-aged man didn't have the opportunity to look at all kinds of eyes around him. A pair of silver eyes swept Dong Chuan's eyes. In the depths of his pupils, a touch of fear disappeared in a flash. Soon, he looked at Fang Qian again. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the faces of the people in the field became even more surprised, while Jin Yarrow frowned, but unexpectedly, at this critical moment, he would be broken by the middle-aged man. Hey, sir, I wonder if I can have a look at your fighting skills? Fang Qian's old eyes met with Dong Chuanlu on one side, and then looked at the middle-aged man with a smile and asked. And then, Fang Qian seemed to notice that there was something wrong with talking like this, and even then opened his mouth to explain. Don't get me wrong, sir. This is the rule of my auction house. Anything of high value must be reviewed by me. Of course, I will never talk nonsense. I will tell the truth. Hearing the speech, the middle-aged man could not help but frown slightly. Immediately, he looked at Fang Qian with a suspicious color on his face, and then faintly gave a cold hum. At the same time, he shot the 2 scrolls in his hand at Fang Qian. He took over the 2 scrolls. Fang Qian's old eyes were turbid. Even when he looked at the scroll in his hand, Fang Qian's old eyes closed slowly and a trace of soul power poured into the scroll with Fang Qian's heart. After a short moment, Fang Qian finally opened his eyes. At the same time, in his turbid old eyes, a golden light flashed away. Yes, what this gentleman said is true. As Fang Qian's words slowly spread out, the strong fighting emperors present immediately seemed to be sentenced to death. Everyone's face showed a look of despair. Even Jin Yarrow at the moment could not help but sigh with Daimai's frown. Although Jin Yarrow also had the spirit level skill in her hand, it was only a volume. I thought it would be enough for her to win the Huaji pill, but I never thought that the fighting skill taken out by the middle-aged man could not be compared with his thunder determination. At this moment, even Xiao Yan, who was in the box, couldn't help showing an exclamation on his face. It's crazy to use the spirit level skill for trading. At least, he can't do such a thing. Of course, while thinking like this in his heart, Xiao Yang also ignores one point. The reason why he thinks so in his heart is that he is only a small half-emperor now. The knowledge of the half-emperor strong is naturally different from that of the fighting emperor strong. Although the spirit level skill is cherished by the half-emperor strong, it is in the eyes of the fighting emperor strong. Although the price is not low, it is far from being able to let go. For those who fight against the emperor, a volume of skill is just lost. If they lose it, they will lose it. But if they can exchange it for strength, this is the real thing. If you don't use it, it will always be a dead thing. Instead of doing it, you'd better use it to do something that is relatively meaningful to them. And a Huaji pill can just let these strong fighters meet the needs of their hearts. Hehe, can you still get a higher level of skill or fighting skills? On the auction platform, Fang Qian looked around the audience with a smile. A pair of smiling eyes had almost narrowed into a thin line, in which a satisfactory smile emerged. Hearing Fang Qian's words, everyone at the scene could not help but look at Fang Qian secretly. At the moment of looking at Fang Qian, they hid far away for fear that they would be pulled into the thief's boat by this guy again. The price of this Huaji pill was abruptly fried to this extent by the old man in front of them. They were even afraid that they would shout and shoot again because of Fang Qian's words. At the same time, those who fought against the emperor and the strong in the sky also returned to their respective boxes with a face of unwilling and unhappy. In the face of a strong man in the middle of the 2-star duty, even if they have more dissatisfaction in their hearts, they still have nothing to do. Who makes the other parties bid higher than them? It seems that from the beginning, they have been doomed to be losers, and the middle-aged man is just a fisherman who came out last. Seeing such a situation in the market, Fang Qian did not dare to continue to expect higher prices. There are 2 things in everything. If he dares to covet more, I'm afraid the outcome will not be so good. Just accept it when it's good, which not only brought huge profits to the auction house, but also maintained more traffic, so that he was not attracted by those who came to the auction, say it's a profiteer. If not, I would like to announce here that Zhao Xian is the auctioneer of Huaji Pill, the last auction item of this Yangcheng Tianyun auction. As soon as Fang Qian said this, everyone at the scene immediately knew the name of the middle-aged man. Zhao Xian. In the box, after hearing the name of the middle-aged man, Xiao Yang couldn't help but frown. There was a look of worry without source in his eyebrows. Then, Dong Chuan on the auction platform was moved by his overbearing face at this moment. At the same time, the thick voice of words also came out. In that case, I'll announce here that this auction is over. In the next time, you can continue our follow-up free trading activities in the auction house. Of course, if you want to leave, my auction house will not stop you. Please help yourself. When the words fell, Dong Chuan and Fang Qian also left one after another, and then the people on the auction ground surged up respectively. As for the strong fighting emperors in the box, they left and stayed after a little hesitation. As for Xiao Yang and Murong Qianqian at the moment, they waited for the end of the auction. Murong Qianqian at the moment immediately woke up from the previous dull atmosphere. The whole pretty face was full of sweet smiles. They hurriedly urged Xiao Yang. Let's go. The auction is over. Let's get out of here. Then the girl came to Xiao Yang like a little rabbit. A pair of white jade hands surrounded Xiao Yang's arms and wanted to pull the latter away. Seeing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but show a look of crying and laughing. He pressed the latter down, gave a helpless wry smile, and even spoke to the latter. What are you going to do? I haven't taken my auction products yet. Now that I'm gone, won't the red flame flower become something in someone else's bag? Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Murong Qianqian reacted. Although Xiao Yang has auctioned the red flame flower, it seems that it is still in the auction house. If Xiao Yang doesn't bring it, I'm afraid it will really be taken away by others. At the thought of this, even though she couldn't help frowning, the girl immediately pulled Xiao Yang again and said, "Then go quickly and get the red flame flower back. If you don't go again, it will become someone else's late." Seeing the girl's fiery appearance, Xiao Yang couldn't help but smile bitterly. Immediately, he followed the latter and walked out of the box together. The two of them just stepped out of the box. When their eyes turned, Murong Qianqian's pretty face immediately coagulated slightly, and Xiao Yang was stunned for a moment. Immediately after that, they returned to their senses. A smile appeared on their face and looked at the red-skirt woman standing in front of them at the moment. "He, Master Jinfang, we meet again." Xiao Yang smiled and said genially. "Cluck, yes, Xiao Yang's brother." As soon as Jin Yaro's voice fell, Xiao Yang's face suddenly changed. Even Murong Qianqian on one side changed his look on his pretty face. "Cluck, don't worry, those guys have left, and now this space has been blocked by me. Our dialogue can't be heard by outsiders." Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang breathed a long breath in his heart. He immediately looked at the latter, glanced at the proud body of the woman in red skirt, and then glanced lightly and asked, "Master Jin Fang is looking for me now. What's the matter?" "Hehe, look at what you said. Can't my sister find you if she's okay?" Hearing the speech, Jin Yaro smiled. Meimo looked at Murong Qianqian, who was just holding Xiao Yang's arm. The smile on her pretty face was even worse. When she looked back, she found that the girl in front of her was staring at her with a pair of exquisite big eyes and a look of caution. "Cluck, what's the matter with the little girl? Are you afraid that your sister will rob you of a man?" Seeing this, Jin Yaro laughed again, but Murong Qianqian's pretty face quickly became crimson. Xiao Yang was excited by Jin Yaro's words and coughed a few times. A pair of eyes glared at Jin Yaro in front of him. In this regard, the latter ignored it, but seemed more proud to support his proud upper body, which made the girl in front of him feel jealous. At the same time, the two jade hands holding Xiao Yang's arms also made more efforts, which made Xiao Yang cry in pain. Hum. With a low hum, he took back his eyes again. At the same time, he pulled back the thoughts that jumped out of his mind. "If you don't go to the Three Treasures Hall, you won't just come to see me." Cluck, Three Treasures Hall? This is Tianyun Auction House. Be careful if people hear it and drive you out. Jin Yaro covered her mouth and smiled. Helplessly glanced. The woman in red dress was really better than him. "Let's go. Since it's all right, go and get the things I auctioned first. I remember you auctioned a few things, too. Let's go together." "Well, maybe that guy is still in the auction house. I'd like to see him and see who it is." Jin Yaro's bright beautiful eyes flickered slightly. Under the charm, there was a frightening poisonous snake hidden. This scene made Xiao Yang's heart tremble. At the same time, he couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. Fortunately, the fangs of the beautiful snake in front of him were not released against him. Then, they talked and laughed and chatted casually. The ridicule in the words made Murong Xiao, who had been silent, blush to the root of his ears. At the same time, Xiao Yang also felt that his left arm, which was tightly held by the girl, was afraid that a small piece of it had been pinched purple. With Xiao Yang's physical strength, ordinary warcraft can hardly hurt him, but he was pinched by a little girl. Xiao Yang couldn't help but feel a bitter sigh in his heart. For these, Jin Yarrow on one side naturally looked in the eyes and understood in the heart. However, after all, he still smiled, and a red lip showed an obsessed smile, which made Xiao Yang couldn't help scolding the goblin in his heart. Every tempting move of this woman, no matter what it is, will make Murong Xianxian's two jade hands holding his arm harder, but Xiao Yang can only suppress herself reluctantly in his heart. Xiao Yang will hardly doubt that if Jin Yarrow's strength is not above fighting the emperor, then I'm afraid she should have become the source of disaster for countless men. But perhaps it is precisely because Jin Yarrow is a strong man fighting against the emperor that he did not cause disputes among the strong men in the western regions. In a short moment, under the ravage of Murong Xianxian, Xiao Yang and the graceful woman in front of him finally came to the backstage of the auction house. Here, they can find Fang Qian and get back what they got from the auction. The three entered the backstage and appeared in front of them. First, there was a hall that could accommodate 40 or 50 people. The hall seemed a little empty. Only a few waiters waited here, as if they knew someone would come. Their faces looked simple and lonely. Looking at this, they should have been waiting for a while. Several waiters stood in place like sculptures until Xiao Yang bypassed several beams and columns and entered the hall. Only then did they look at Xiao Yang. Immediately, one of the three had a slight fluctuation in his chest. It was obvious that he took a long breath and waited bored, which seemed to make him a little tired. 3 adults, are you here to get the auction? The waiter's eyes quickly swept over the 3 people in front of him. To Xiao Yang's surprise, the waiter's eyes were not affected by Jin Yarrow's charm. Yes, I'll get the sapphire fruit. Jin Yarrow seemed to be used to the waiter's dull eyes. She glanced lightly and said in a charming voice. Seeing this, Xiao Yang hurriedly followed him and said, I'll get the flaming flower. The waiter obviously knew the former. Therefore, when he spoke, the expression on the waiter's face had not changed at all. He just heard Xiao Yang speak at the moment, especially after he heard the flaming flower, but the expression on the waiter's face finally changed. Everyone at the auction today knows that the flaming flower appeared on the market was taken by a third-order herbalist, but it was unexpected that the third-order herbalist would appear in front of him, and looking at Xiao Yang's young face at the moment, it seems to be a little more immature than what is said. How old is this boy? Can he become a third-order herbalist? At this moment, Rao was surprised by the waiter's nature, but he couldn't help but wonder in his heart. Such a young third-order herbalist really had to surprise him. At this moment, let alone him, the other 2 waiters behind him who stood in place like sculptures and didn't move at all, also couldn't help raising their eyes and shooting at Xiao Yang's indifferent eyes. It was also at this moment that a trace of surprise emerged. 3 adults, please follow me. Then, after a moment of surprise, the waiter said to Xiao Yang again in a flat tone. At the same time, he raised his hand and made an invitation gesture to Xiao Yang. Seeing this, the 3 looked at each other, and then Jin Yarrow stepped in front. First, his swaying posture was like a standing water snake, walking slowly towards a dimly lit channel deep in the hall. After that, Xiao Yang and the others followed slowly. Accompanied by one more person, Murong Xianxian was a little quiet along the way. After a burst of light footsteps, the light at the end of the passage gradually opened up in front of the 4 people, and the waiter finally stopped at the end of the passage. However, at this moment, at the end of the passage, in the world shrouded in white light, a human figure slowly stepped out at this moment. Seeing the figure, on the cheeks of Xiao Yang and Jin Yarrow, the original calm look could not help but change slightly at this moment. This is Zhao Xian. Zhao Xian. Seeing the visitor, Xiao Yang couldn't help whispering in his heart. He clearly remembers that this guy's strength is stronger than any foreign duty strongman present before. He is a duty strongman in the middle of 2 stars. In front of this guy, Xiao Yang has no chance of winning. Even if he hasn't faced him squarely, he still makes Xiao Yang feel an inexplicable chill. Now, Zhao Xian also found the 3 Xiao Yang standing in front of him. Even if he couldn't help but frown, the tip of his nose made a sound of light yi. Immediately after that, when his eyes saw Xiao Yang and Murong Xianxian beside him, there was a sudden erasure in the pair of silver pupils. For that murderous intention, even if it flashed and died, it was still found by Jin Yaro, who was closely observing the latter at the moment. Immediately, Jin Yaro moved, and her delicate body immediately blocked Xiao Yang and Murong Qianqian. The tip of her upturned nose gave a cold hum of indifference, and a pair of beautiful eyes also burst out a chill. Are you Jin Yaro, the owner of the 1,000 Medicine Workshop? Zhao Shenbing's cold eyes slowly moved away from Xiao Yang. Immediately, he looked at Jin Yaro. The look on his face did not change because of the latter's breath. Who are you? In the face of Zhao Xian's questions, Jin Yaro's face also looked colder and colder. In a pair of beautiful eyes, she looked very indifferent, but at the same time, she also had a deep color of fear. Although they are two-star fighting emperors, the latter is a fighting emperor in the middle of 2 stars. Although the difference between them is only 1 line, it is like the difference between heaven and earth. Compared with the semi-emperor strong, reaching the level of fighting emperor strong, the division of strength is extremely harsh. Even if they are only a line apart, they are absolutely clear in strength. The strong is the strong. Here, there is no difference, only the difference between clouds and mud. Don't worry. I won't do it here. Even if I look at the whole western region, no one will dare to do it. Even I can't, but boy. As soon as the voice fell, Zhao Xian pointed at the sword edge, and his fierce and cold eyes looked at Xiao Yang again. These cold eyes made Xiao Yang feel like a thorn in his back, which made Xiao Yang's body shiver. Remember, you have to pay the debts you owe when you go out. Even if you can be safe in the cloud auction house today, as long as you dare to leave here, I guarantee you, you will never get out of the burning city. Hearing such cruel words, Xiao Yang couldn't help but change his face again. He really couldn't figure out when he had such an enemy under the tree. While Xiao Yang was thinking about it, Zhao Xian moved. His strong body quickly passed by Xiao Yang. The vigorous wind brought by him when he passed by made Xiao Yang's face ache. Walking with wind and as fast as thunder, such invisible power can really live up to the strong man fighting the emperor, Xiao Yang secretly exclaimed. At the same time, he couldn't help being more curious about Zhao Xian. Xiao Yang was sure that he was the first time to see him. Why was this guy so hostile to him, which always made Xiao Yang feel a doubt in his heart. At this time, at the end of the channel, a familiar old voice came from another space haunted by white light. He, 3 people outside, please come in. Hearing this familiar voice, Xiao Yang's face immediately relaxed a lot. The owner listening to the voice is Fang Qian, the manager of the auction house. Old man, who am I? It's you again. In this regard, Jin Yaro beside Xiao Yang was slightly pursed with red lips, and a light color appeared on her cheeks. Obviously, Zhao Xian's departure also reduced the pressure in her heart. The 3 looked at each other. Murong Qianqian showed a look like a good girl from beginning to end, but the others didn't know. At the moment, Xiao Yang's arm was already numb. After the 3 people stepped into the white light once, the 3 people almost narrowed their eyes like a conditioned reflex. After a while, when the 3 people became familiar with the white light, they slowly opened their eyes. What comes into view is a stone chamber. The space of the stone chamber is not large or small, which can accommodate nearly 20 people. The walls on 3 sides are bare without any modification. They are all black like ink. However, in the faint, it emits a strange light that is difficult to capture. The only furniture in the stone room is a table. It is also a stone table. A black stone table is carved with all kinds of warcraft. It looks very valuable. 3 chairs were placed around the stone table. The 3 sat down in turn. Fang Qian was impolite. I've been here for a long time. I'm ready for the 2 of you, only the 2 in your hands. At this point, Fang Qian's face looked slightly, but he didn't speak again. Xiao Yang and Jin Yaro knew it with a smile. Here is my lily of the valley cream. Jin Yaro casually took out a jade box. After opening it, a milky white jade-like plaster appeared in front of the 3 people. Seeing the plaster, the smile on Fang Qian's old face was even brighter. Even if he carefully held it in his hand, he gently sucked his nose and felt the unique smell on the ointment. After a short moment, he nodded with a smile. Yes, the owner of the gold workshop took out all good things. I'm afraid my auction house can't compare with 1/10 of your collection alone. He couldn't help laughing and boasting. Fang Qian took out a jade box with one hand. After opening it, a green exquisite fruit also appeared in front of the 4 people. Green jade fruit, here, this is also what you want. Don't worry. I'm here. I'm sure he's the best. Learning from Jin Yaro's tone, Fang Qian said with a smile. Immediately, Fang Qian looked more fiery at Xiao Yang, who was deep before them. Compared with the things taken out by the former, Fang Qian cared more about the 1,000 leaves taken out by Xiao Yang. That's a really valuable good thing. Hey, sir, what about yours? I'm more curious than this. How did you get the 1,000 leaves of this woman? When he said this, Fang Qian did not forget to tease Xiao Yang with his eyes, which made the latter's face show a look of crying and laughing. Shrugging his shoulders, Xiao Yang shook his head non-committally, didn't answer, but bent his fingers. With a flash of white light, an emerald green fan leaf the size of a washbasin appeared on the stone table in front of him. Here, thousands of leaves, thousands of years. And it's so fresh and the medicine is so well preserved, just like it was picked not long ago. Xiao Yang's voice didn't fall, and Fang Qian immediately spoke. The words were also full of a strong sense of surprise. Hearing Fang Qian's words, Xiao Yang's serious look was slightly undetectable and he quickly said, "For these medicinal materials, I naturally have my preservation method. It's not strange that they can be preserved so completely." Hearing the speech, of course, there was a suspicious look in his eyes, but he nodded after all. Xiao Yang frowned slightly, looked at Fang Qian with a look of expectation in his eyes, and his tone contained a trace of eagerness. "I've taken out all my things. Should I have my flaming flowers, too?" "Oh, sir, I'm very anxious." With a slight smile, Fang Qian no longer talked nonsense. He also bent his fingers and a jade box appeared on the stone table in front of several people. Without half hesitation, Xiao Yang immediately opened it. Suddenly, a fire-red light quickly reflected in the whole stone chamber. Looking at the fire-red flowers in the jade box in front of him, Xiao Yang's mood quickly became excited at this moment. Quickly put away the flaming flowers in the jade box. A huge stone in Xiao Yang's heart finally fell to the ground at this moment. The flaming flower is finally in hand. This video will end here.